Hello. Welcome to this week's version, edition. I don't know. This week's iteration, I guess, of Zuchi's book club. Today we're gonna go over part one of Nonviolent Communication by Michael Rosenberg. Didn't get through the whole book, but uh, we got through what we got through, and we'll go through the rest of the book next week. This week I went through, I think, the first 7 chapters, and there's 13 chapters with an epilogue. So, chapter one, giving from the heart. There's 4 key aspects to nonviolent communication: observation, feelings, needs, and requests. Observation is like what is happening. Is this enriching or is it not? Articulating the observation without judgment. Uh, the second part, feelings, is stating your feelings. Needs are uh, what need is connected to the feelings identified. And then requests, it's what's desired from the other party to enrich your life or make life more wonderful for both of you guys. Express honestly, receive uh, empathetically, empathic. I think I meant so I don't know how to pronounce that word. Empathetically, receive with empathy is what I'm trying to say through those 4 parts. An example, like a mother that wants her son to clean up around. The observation would be like, oh, I see laundry under the table and by the TV. I feel irritated because I want more order in our shared areas. That would be your feeling and your need. And then the request would be like, would you be willing to put them in the washing machine? Pretty straightforward so far. Chapter two is communication that blocks compassion. Like, what type of communication can cause frustration? Things like moralistic judgments. That's like the implication of wrongness or like badness in people that act in a way that isn't harmonious to your like own views and stuff. Violence is bad versus like the dislike of violence to resolve conflict. You could have different views, but labeling is when it gets bad. The next type, making comparisons. Comparisons are a form of judgment. Like the most obvious thing, like you just think about like when you're a kid and you get compared to your cousin. Like, does that feel good? No, it doesn't. So like, don't compare. Don't Comparison is the thief of joy. I love that quote. Um, comparing yourself to like any prodigy like Mozart, like obviously you're gonna feel bad, right? Uh, Other type of communication that can cause frustration: denial of responsibility. The use of like the term "have to," like vague impersonal forces. I have to clean my room. The condition: I drink because I'm an alcoholic. Others' actions: I hit my child because he ran into the street. Authority: I lied to my client because my boss told me to. Group pressure: I started smoking because my friends did. Policy: oh, I have to do this because it's company policy. Societal: I work because I have to pay the bills. Like thinking like you have to because of this and this. Impulses: oh, I ate that candy because I was overcome by my urges. Replace the language that implies a lack of choice. If you aren't conscious of your responsibility, you'll become disconnected. The book's example was like a lady that didn't like grades, but she had to put them out because of district policy. Don't think of like it as like you have to give out grades. You choose to give out grades because ultimately we all have free will, right? You choose to give out grades because you want to keep your job. You know, Other forms of life alienating communication. You can't force people to do things. It's inherent to like the rebellious nature in everyone. The belief that people deserve something kind of blocks compassionate communication. Chapter three. This was observing without evaluating. Labeling things causes the mind to lock into that perception. You know, like if you think of a kid, like if you're told, oh, this kid is like a bit of a brat, like you're gonna treat him differently because it's already in your mind that like he's gonna mess around, right? That kind of thing. Uh, Sometimes it's better to just be direct, I guess. Not everything is noticeable to everyone. Uh, And there's like a very important difference between evaluation and observation, you know? Like you were too generous versus I think you're being too generous, right? Using that word to be means you take responsibility for the evaluation, you know? He procrastinates versus he only studies the night before, you know, verbs with inherently evaluative connotations. There's implying your inferences are the only possibility, like he won't finish his portion versus I don't think he will, you know? Conflating prediction with certainty, like if you do that, you'll die, or if you do that, I worry for your health, kind of thing. Generalization, you know, the book used the example of like immigrants or something. Um, Use of words to denote ability without an evaluation, like, oh, that guy sucks, versus, oh, that guy hasn't scored all season, right? Like, you're not saying he sucks, but that is like an objective evaluation of like, oh, yeah, he hasn't done this. Or objective observation, like he hasn't scored. But saying he's bad, that's more subjective. Uh, yeah, oh, use of adverbs and adjectives to obfuscate evaluation. He's chopped versus I'm not attracted to him. This also works with exaggeration. You know, like think about how you feel bad when someone says like, "Oh, you never do this," and then you just think about like, "Oh yeah, here, like, oh I did that, but I did it this time. I did it that time," kind of thing. Um, I think the example the book used was like a mother saying, "Oh, my son doesn't often brush his teeth, or often doesn't brush his teeth." You know, you're still evaluating with the word often, right? If your son doesn't brush his teeth, that would be that would be an observation if he actually didn't. But you're saying he doesn't often. Like often is a non-set period of time kind of thing. I mean, chapter four, identifying and expressing feelings. You know, express yourself. People can't read your moods. People can be much more sympathetic when you express yourself. You know, like if you talk about how you feel, people will want to help. Will want to be nice. You know, um, there's typically more simply when you express yourself. You know, distinguish feelings and thoughts. Like I'm irritated versus I feel irritated. You can feel disappointed about your skills. You don't feel inadequate. You know, inadequacy is like the evaluation. Disappointment would be like the feeling, right? Try to work in vocabulary that is more emotional. You know, like, oh, I feel refreshed. I feel optimistic. You know, I feel jealous. I feel unheard. You know, or not I feel unheard. I feel refreshed. Don't use things like I feel unheard or I feel cheated or I feel pressured because like doesn't say like what's the root cause kind of thing. Here are some examples the book gave that I think were good. Like, when you don't greet me, I feel neglected. Neglect is more so an action. Lonely is more of the emotion. You know, so you would prefer something like I feel lonely rather than I feel neglected. Um, I feel misunderstood. You know, that's pretty nonverbal because like, why do you feel misunderstood? Are you right? Or like, in what way? Like, does it make you frustrated or does it make you like sad? There's I feel good about what you did for me. Good is vague, but you know it still generally expresses the feelings. Oh, I'm worthless. Uh, this was actually kind of interesting. I was talking with a friend. I didn't know wretched was like an emotion. So like something like that. You know, replace worthless with I feel wretched. You know, that's what the author was saying. Chapter 5, taking responsibility for our feelings. When taking blame, you should sense your own feelings and others' feelings. Sensing your own feelings and needs helps you derive like the feeling of hurt and what your need is. The sensing of others' feelings helps you understand why they might be hurting. You know, compare the following, like you disappointed me by not gaming yesterday versus like I was disappointed you didn't game yesterday because I wanted to play this new game, right? The first statement like just makes you feel like, you know, the full brunt of the disappointment is because of the listener, whereas like the second one is like, oh yeah, you know, this was my desire, you know, it's not like your fault kind of thing. Like the speech patterns come up in like the following manner. In personal pronouns, that would be like, it bugs me. Something they did, you know? Or I feel dot 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 because they dot dot dot. I feel angry because you didn't keep your promise kind of thing. mentioning the actions of others, like, oh, when you don't do this, I feel hurt. So try to use like I feel blank because I blank. There's a distinct difference between good action and being motivated by guilt. Judgments are based on unmet needs. You need to learn to respect your own needs because then people will respect them. If you don't, then people won't. Um, there's a cycle that this chapter talks about. The emotional slavery, where you take responsibility for others' feelings, and then the obnoxious stage of anger towards this responsibility, and then the emotional liberation of taking responsibility for your intentions and actions. Consider the following example. Does the speaker acknowledge their feelings? I feel happy you received the award. I mean, no. When you received the award, I felt happy because I was hoping you'd be recognized for all the hard work. You know, just saying you feel happy doesn't say enough, I guess. Like you can feel happy for them, but like expand on it. Tell them more, I guess. Chapter 6, requesting that which would enrich life. Be conscious and positive in your requests. Ask for reflection. Use concrete language. Don't say spend less time at work. Say what you would want, like spend more time with me, which is really probably what you would want. You know, don't say why did you forget the onions? Say could you go back and get the onions, right? Be conscious in like how you're requesting it. Don't just like yeah. Ask for reflection. Get the other person to say what you think. Like this can seem obnoxious, but like if you do it in a way that like sounds genuine, right? You can solve a lot of like the future heartache. Like get the person to say what you think or what they think you want, and make sure they don't incorrectly read or fail to read between the lines, kind of thing. And use concrete language. Like you want to know their feelings, thoughts, and willingness. Consider the following examples from the book. Are they clear in their requests? I want you to stop drinking. That this should be like, I want you to tell me what needs of yours are met by drinking and to discuss with me other ways of meeting those needs. Saying, I'd like to get to know you better. That could be improved by saying, I'd like you to tell me if you'd be willing to meet me for lunch, kind of thing. I'd like you to prepare supper more often. Work your way in. Like, I'd like you to prepare supper every Monday, kind of thing. Chapter 7. This is the last slide. Receiving empathically. I should have looked up how to, because it's empathy. So empath, empathically, empathically. I think there's a tendency to offer advice and reassurance instead of empathy. Ask before giving. Common examples like advising. I think you should have blank. How come you didn't blank? Um, one upping like, oh, that's nothing. Wait till you hear what happened to me. Educating like, oh, this could be a positive experience for you if you blank. Consoling like, oh, it wasn't your fault. You did your best. you know, Storytelling. Oh, that reminds me of the time I blank. Shutting down. Cheer up. Don't feel so bad. Interrogating. Like, when did this happen? Why did they do that? Asking too many questions. Explaining like, oh yeah, I wouldn't have done that. Or correcting like, oh yeah, actually that's not what happened. Like, I know that sounds like a lot of like things that you could respond being bad. From what I'm getting, like I'm understanding from this, it's like if they want something, you just ask, like, what do they want? If they want you to just be there, yeah, you can just be there. Just, the key to empathy is presence. Observe, feel, see what they need. Paraphrasing is good to like confirm their feelings, and it shows like you're actively listening. And my thought process is like, doesn't paraphrasing seem like you're like being rude? And apparently, no. Like you're just showing, it's showing that you're there. You're there for them. Um, Consider the following responses to a given statement. These are examples from the book. Are they empathetic? Are you feeling hurt because? Oh, how could you say that to me? Are you hurt because I said that? You could have said, "Are you feeling hurt because you would have liked me to agree to what you requested," kind of thing. Or, "I'm disappointed with how you've been acting lately," and then saying like, "I understand, but it's been a stressful time." That's not empathetic, empathic, empathetic, because you know you're making an excuse in that second one. you're explaining like, or not explaining, I guess. You're kind of trying to attack them and like, oh, this is why, you know. And the first one, it's like you would prefer something like the "Are you feeling hurt?" because you would have preferred, because like you're showing that like, yeah, you know, I get that I did something wrong. Whereas this one is just saying like, or are you hurt? The other one is looking more actively, I guess, to why they hurt. Yeah, this was kind of a short week, I guess. I mean, I'm still 6 to 15 minutes, but I think we'll wrap up the book next week. Yeah, join me next week, I guess, for the rest of the book. Bye bye.